Before we get into the story, leave a comment and let us know what city you're watching from. And don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10 at the end. Enjoy the story. The music was too loud. That was Emma's first thought as she pushed through the mahogany doors of the Riverside Hotel's grand ballroom, her heart already hammering against her ribs. The bass vibrated through the marble floors, and the glittering chandeliers above seemed to pulse with each beat. Everywhere she looked, there were people, beautiful people in expensive clothes, laughing and holding champagne flutes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. This was a mistake. She knew it the moment she walked in, but her best friend Casey had insisted, practically dragging her here with promises that it would be good for her to get out, to move on, to stop hiding in her tiny apartment with nothing but Ben and Jerry's and romantic comedies for company. Move on, as if it were that simple, as if 3 years of her life could just be erased because Ryan decided he wanted someone better, someone whose father owned a chain of car dealerships instead of working at one. Emma smoothed down her dress, a simple black number she'd found at a thrift store, and altered herself. It was perfectly fine, she'd told herself in the mirror. Elegant, even. But now, surrounded by women in designer gowns that probably cost thousands of dollars, she felt like a fraud. Like everyone could see she didn't belong here. Casey appeared at her elbow, pressing a glass of champagne into her hand. "Stop looking like you're about to bolt," she said, her voice warm with affection and exasperation in equal measure. "You look gorgeous. Now drink this and try to have fun. That's an order." Emma managed a weak smile and took a sip. The champagne was crisp and cold, probably the most expensive thing she'd ever tasted. "Whose party is this again?" she asked, scanning the crowd nervously. The invitation had been vague, something about a corporate celebration, but Casey worked in marketing for some big company downtown and was always getting invited to events like this. "It's for Hartwell Industries," Casey said, waving at someone across the room. "Their CEO just closed some massive deal, hence the excessive celebration. Don't worry, there are like 300 people here. The chances of you knowing anyone are basically zero." The chances of knowing anyone. That should have been comforting. It wasn't, because Emma knew that in a city like this, the circles of the wealthy and connected were smaller than you'd think. And Ryan, her ex-boyfriend, the man who dumped her 6 months ago via text message while she was at work, moved in those circles now. His new girlfriend, Melissa Ashford, came from serious money, the kind of family that appeared in the society pages and had wings of hospitals named after them, the kind of family that made sure everyone knew their daughter could do so much better than some struggling graphic designer from the wrong side of town. Emma took another gulp of champagne, larger this time. She was being paranoid. Ryan wouldn't be here. He worked in finance, not whatever Hartwell Industries did. She was safe. She could relax, maybe even enjoy herself, meet some new people. Remember what it felt like to be someone other than the girl who wasn't good enough. And then she saw him. He was across the ballroom, near the ice sculpture of a swan that was slowly melting under the warmth of too many bodies and expensive lights. He looked exactly the same, tall and conventionally handsome in his tailored suit, his dark hair styled with just enough product to look effortlessly perfect. But it wasn't Ryan that made Emma's stomach drop. It was the woman on his arm. Melissa Ashford, looking like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine, her honey blonde hair falling in perfect waves, her red dress probably worth more than Emma's car. They were laughing at something, Ryan's hand possessive on her waist, and Emma felt like she'd been punched. She turned so fast she nearly spilled her champagne on the man behind her. "I have to go," she said to Casey, her voice tight. Casey grabbed her arm. "What?" "We just got here. What's wrong?" "He's here. Ryan's here. With her." Emma didn't need to explain who her was. Casey had heard enough about Melissa Ashford to last a lifetime. "I can't do this. I can't be here." "So don't let him see you leave," Casey said, her grip firm. "Emma, you came here looking incredible, feeling brave. Don't let him take that away from you. Just stay on the other side of the room. It's huge. He probably won't even notice you." But Emma wasn't listening. She was already moving, weaving through clusters of people, her only thought to get away, to find somewhere, anywhere, that wasn't here. The ballroom suddenly felt suffocating, the laughter too shrill, the lights too bright. She couldn't breathe. She needed air, needed space, needed to not be in the same room as Ryan and his perfect girlfriend with her perfect life. She found a hallway that led away from the main party, dimly lit and blessedly quiet. Her heels clicked against the polished floor as she hurried down it, passing closed doors with brass nameplates she didn't bother reading. At the end of the hall, she spotted what looked like a utility closet, its door slightly ajar. Without thinking, she pushed it open and slipped inside, pulling the door closed behind her. The darkness was immediate and absolute. Emma leaned back against the door, her heart still racing, and let out a long, shaky breath. This was ridiculous. She was hiding in a closet at a party like some kind of character in a bad sitcom. But at least she was alone. At least she didn't have to watch Ryan parade his new life in front of her, didn't have to smile and pretend she was fine, that seeing him didn't make her feel like a failure all over again. She fumbled for her phone, the light from the screen bright enough to reveal her surroundings. The closet was larger than she'd expected, more of a small room, really, lined with shelves holding linens and cleaning supplies. There was just enough space for her to sink down onto the floor, her dress pooling around her, and finally let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. Except she wasn't alone. "If you're planning to cry," a voice said from the darkness behind her, "I should warn you that I'm a terrible person to cry in front of. I never know what to say, and I'll probably just make it worse." Emma's scream died in her throat as her phone light swung toward the voice. There, sitting on the floor against the far wall, long legs stretched out in front of him, was a man. He'd raised one hand to shield his eyes from her phone's glare, but she could make out dark hair, a strong jawline, and a suit that even in the poor light looked expensive. Very expensive. "Who are you?" she managed, her voice embarrassingly high. "What are you doing in here?" The man lowered his hand slowly, his eyes adjusting to the light. They were striking, she noticed, even in her panic, a shade of blue that seemed almost gray. "I could ask you the same question," he said, his tone dry but not unkind. "But I'm going to guess you're hiding from someone at the party." "Same as me." Emma's mind raced. She should leave. Obviously, she should leave. But something in the man's voice, a certain weariness that matched her own, made her hesitate. "You're hiding too?" she asked, lowering her phone slightly but keeping the light on him. She wasn't about to sit in complete darkness with a stranger, no matter how expensive his suit was. "I am," he confirmed, and she saw the corner of his mouth lift in what might have been amusement. "Though I was here first, so technically, you're intruding on my hiding spot." Despite everything, despite the fact that her ex-boyfriend was out there with his perfect girlfriend, and she was in a closet with a strange man, Emma felt a laugh bubble up in her chest. "I'm sorry for invading your space," she said, the absurdity of the situation suddenly overwhelming. "I can find another closet if you want." "Don't be ridiculous. There's plenty of room for two miserable people." He shifted slightly, making space on the floor beside him. "Come on, your phone's dying anyway. I can see the battery warning from here." He was right. Emma glanced at her phone and saw she was down to 15%. She must have forgotten to charge it again. Story of her life lately. With a sigh that felt like surrender, She made her way across the small space and settled onto the floor beside him, careful to maintain a respectable distance. She angled her phone so it provided just enough light to see by without being intrusive. They sat in silence for a moment, and Emma became acutely aware of how close they were. She could smell his cologne, something subtle and probably ridiculously expensive. Could hear the sound of his breathing, steady and calm in a way that hers wasn't. "So," she said finally, because the silence was becoming unbearable, "what are you hiding from?" "The party," he said simply. "All of it. The networking, the small talk, the people who want something from me. Sometimes you just need 5 minutes where nobody knows where you are." He turned to look at her, and in the phone's dim glow, his features were softer than she'd expected. Handsome, yes, but there was something almost vulnerable in his expression. "What about you?" Emma debated lying, making up some story that didn't make her sound pathetic. But there was something about sitting in the dark with a stranger that made honesty easier. "My ex-boyfriend is out there with his new girlfriend," she said, the words coming faster than she'd intended. "The one he left me for, the one who's better than me in every possible way, according to basically everyone." "That's rough," the man said, and he sounded like he actually meant it. "But for what it's worth, if he left you for someone else, he's an idiot." Emma let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "You don't even know me. I know you're hiding in a closet instead of facing him, which shows self-preservation instincts. And I know you can laugh at absurd situations, which is a rare quality." He paused. "Also, your dress is very nice. That's not nothing." She turned to look at him properly for the first time, really look at him, and felt her breath catch slightly. He was more than handsome. He was striking, with those unusual eyes, and the kind of bone structure that belonged on magazine covers. "Thank you," she said softly. "I made it myself. Altered it, I mean, from a thrift store find." His eyebrows rose, impressed. "You're talented, then. That's definitely worth more than whatever this guy saw in his new girlfriend." "She's a Ashford," Emma found herself saying, though she hadn't planned to. As in the Ashford family. Money, connections, the whole package. "I'm a graphic designer who can barely make rent. I don't blame him for upgrading." The man was quiet for a moment, and Emma worried she'd said too much, revealed too much of her bitterness and hurt. But when he spoke, his voice was gentle. "You know what I've learned about people with money and connections?" he asked. "Most of them are incredibly boring. They've never had to be interesting because they've never had to work for anything. Give me someone who makes their own dresses and hides in closets any day." Emma felt warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in months. "You're good at this," she said. "Making people feel better, I mean. Don't let it fool you. Usually I'm terrible with people. But sitting in the dark makes things easier somehow." He shifted, and their shoulders brushed. Emma didn't pull away. "I'm Alexander, by the way, though everyone calls me Alex." "Emma," she replied. "Emma Carter." "Well, Emma Carter, I have a proposition for you." Alex turned toward her, and in the limited light, she could see he was smiling. "Since we're both avoiding the party anyway, why don't we just stay here for a while? We can be miserable together. It's better than being miserable alone." Emma knew she should say no. Should thank him for the distraction and head back out there, find Casey, maybe leave through a side exit. But the thought of going back to that ballroom, of risking another glimpse of Ryan and Melissa, made her stomach twist. And sitting here with Alex, this stranger who somehow understood exactly what she needed, felt safer than anything had in a long time. "Okay," she heard herself say. "But if we're going to hide together, I need to know what you're really running from. Fair's fair." Alex leaned his head back against the wall, his expression shifting to something more guarded. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." "Try me. I'm sitting in a closet with a complete stranger." "My bar for believability is pretty low right now." He laughed, a real laugh that transformed his face entirely. "All right. The truth is, tonight is supposed to be my night. My company just closed the biggest deal in its history, and everyone out there wants to congratulate me, pitch me their ideas, introduce me to their daughters, or nieces, or business partners. And all I want is 5 minutes where I'm not Alexander Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell Industries, where I'm just Alex, a guy who finds parties exhausting and would rather be anywhere else." The world seemed to stop spinning for a moment. Emma's mind struggled to process what he'd just said. Alexander Hartwell, Hartwell Industries. The party was for him. This entire elaborate celebration was because of him. She was sitting in a closet with the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the city, and she'd told him about her ex-boyfriend and her thrift store dress like he was just some random guy. "Oh my God," she breathed. "You're the guy. This whole party is for you." Alex winced. "That's why I didn't want to tell you. Now you're going to start acting weird." "Weird? I'm in a closet with the guest of honor at his own party." "Weird doesn't begin to cover this." Emma scrambled to her feet, her phone clutched in her hand. "I should go. You should go. We should both definitely go." But Alex was faster. He stood too, reaching out to catch her hand before she could bolt. His touch was warm, steady, anchoring. "Emma, wait. Please. I don't want you to go." She froze, her heart hammering again, but for entirely different reasons. "Why not?" "Because in the last 10 minutes, you're the first person tonight who's talked to me like I'm a human being instead of a checkbook or a connection. Because hiding in this closet with you has been more genuine than anything else that's happened at this ridiculous party. Because," he stopped himself, seeming to reconsider his words. "Because I like talking to you, and I'm not ready for it to end." Emma's resolve wavered. She could feel the sincerity in his words, see it in the way he looked at her, even in the terrible lighting. This was insane. This entire situation was completely, utterly insane. But wasn't that exactly what she needed? Something unexpected, something that wasn't her carefully controlled life that had still managed to fall apart despite all her planning. "Okay," she said, sitting back down, and Alex's relief was visible. "But you need to explain something to me. Why is the CEO of Hartwell Industries hiding in a closet at his own party? Shouldn't you be out there celebrating?" Alex settled back down beside her, closer this time, and Emma was hyper-aware of the space between them, or lack thereof. "Have you ever had something you worked for your entire life?" he asked. "Something you sacrificed everything for? Pushed yourself past every limit to achieve? Graphic design isn't quite saving the world, but yeah, I guess I understand the concept of working hard for something. Then you understand that when you finally get it, when you finally achieve that impossible goal, sometimes the victory feels hollow. Because you look around and realize you did it alone. Everyone at that party, they're celebrating what I built. But none of them were there when I was working 100-hour weeks, making impossible decisions, sacrificing relationships and sleep and any semblance of a normal life." He paused, and Emma heard the exhaustion in his voice. "My ex-fiancée left me 2 years ago because I couldn't give her enough attention. Said I cared more about my company than about her." She wasn't wrong. Emma absorbed this, her earlier embarrassment about sharing her heartbreak fading. "So we're both hiding from our exes in a way," she said softly. "Different circumstances, same result. I suppose we are." Alex turned to look at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "Though I have to say, your ex is a bigger idiot than mine. At least my ex-fiancée had legitimate complaints. Your ex just traded down." You barely know me. How can you possibly know he traded down? Because you're sitting in a closet with a stranger having a real conversation instead of being fake at a party. Because you made that dress yourself and you're proud of it, instead of ashamed you couldn't afford designer. Because when I said I needed 5 minutes where nobody wanted anything from me, you didn't immediately start pitching me a business idea. He smiled, and Emma felt something flutter in her chest. That's how I know. They talked for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes. Emma told him about her work, her dreams of starting her own design agency someday, her complicated relationship with her mother, who thought graphic design wasn't a real career. Alex told her about growing up with impossible expectations, about building his company from nothing, about the loneliness that came with success. They laughed about the absurdity of their situation, sitting on the floor of a closet while hundreds of people partied just down the hall. Emma's phone died eventually, plunging them into complete darkness. Instead of being scary, it felt intimate, like they were the only two people in the world. I should probably check on my friend, Emma said reluctantly, though she made no move to stand. She's going to think I left. And I should probably get back to my own party, Alex agreed, but he didn't move either. Though honestly, I'd rather stay here. Me too. The admission felt dangerous, too honest. Emma was grateful for the darkness that hit her face. This is crazy, right? That we're just sitting here. Completely insane, Alex confirmed, and she heard the smile in his voice. Best decision I've made all night. Emma felt him shift beside her, felt the warmth of him closer than before. Her heart was racing again, but not from panic this time. Alex? Yeah? I'm glad I hid in your closet. She heard his sharp intake of breath, felt rather than saw him lean toward her. Emma, I'm going to do something that's probably inappropriate, given that we just met in a closet. Tell me to stop if you want me to. Emma knew what was coming. Should definitely tell him to stop. They were strangers, literally hiding in a closet, and he was a CEO and she was nobody. And this was a terrible idea for about 1,000 reasons. Don't stop, she whispered. His kiss was gentle at first, tentative, asking permission with every movement. Emma responded without thinking, her hand coming up to cup his face. Feeling the slight stubble of his jaw, the warmth of his skin. The kiss deepened, became something urgent and necessary, like they were both trying to prove this moment was real. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Emma's mind was spinning. That was, she started. A mistake? Alex finished, sounding worried. I was going to say unexpected. Good unexpected or bad unexpected? Emma smiled in the darkness. Very good unexpected. They heard voices in the hallway outside, someone calling Alexander's name. Alex tensed beside her. That's my assistant. They're looking for me. I'm supposed to give a speech. Reality crashed back in. Of course, he had responsibilities. A party full of important people waiting for him. And she was just a girl hiding from her ex, living in a fantasy that had gone on too long. You should go, Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. They need you out there. Come with me. Alex's hand found hers in the dark, squeezed it. Come out there with me. We'll face your ex together, and you can help me get through the rest of this nightmare. Emma's heart lurched. It was a beautiful offer, romantic even. But the reality of what he was suggesting hit her immediately. Alexander Hartwell walking into his own party with some random girl he'd found in a closet. The gossip would be instantaneous. And when Ryan saw her with someone like Alex, with the man whose party this was, it would look like she'd planned it, like she was trying to make him jealous. I can't, she said, hating how small her voice sounded. Alex, You're Alexander Hartwell." "I'm a graphic designer wearing a thrift store dress. When you walk out there, people will know who you are. And when they see me with you, they'll wonder what I'm doing there. They'll assume things. And honestly, they'd probably be right. This has been wonderful, this whole crazy thing. But we live in different worlds." The silence that followed was heavy. "So that's it," Alex said finally. "We just go back to our separate lives? Pretend this didn't happen?" "I think we have to." Emma stood, fumbling for the door handle. "Thank you for this, for making me feel seen, for making me laugh, for the kiss. But you have a speech to give, and I have an ex-boyfriend to avoid. That's reality." She found the handle, pulled the door open. The light from the hallway was blinding after so long in the dark. Emma didn't look back. Couldn't look back, because if she saw his face, she might change her mind. And that would be the biggest mistake of all. Emma navigated back through the hallway in a daze, her lips still tingling from the kiss, her heart aching in a way that was entirely different from the Ryan-shaped hurt she'd felt earlier. The ballroom noise grew louder as she approached, that same overwhelming cacophony of wealth and celebration she'd fled from. But now it felt even more foreign, like she'd been somewhere else entirely, and was returning to a world that didn't quite fit anymore. Casey found her within seconds of her return, grabbing her arm with a mixture of relief and fury. "Where have you been? I've been texting you for 30 minutes. "I thought you'd left, or had some kind of breakdown in the bathroom." "My phone died," Emma said automatically, which was true, even if it wasn't the whole truth. "I just needed some air." "Well, you picked the perfect time to reappear. Ryan's been looking for you." Casey's expression darkened. "Apparently Melissa saw you when you first arrived and told him. He's been wandering around trying to find you. I think he wants to introduce his girlfriend, show her off, or something equally obnoxious." Emma felt her stomach drop. But strangely, the panic she'd felt earlier was muted now. Everything seemed muted, actually, after the intensity of the closet. "Let him look," she said. "I'm not hiding anymore." Casey's eyebrows rose. "Okay, who are you, and what have you done with my best friend?" "You were literally ready to leave through a fire exit 30 minutes ago." Before Emma could answer, a commotion near the front of the ballroom drew everyone's attention. The music was lowering, and people were turning toward a raised platform where a microphone stood. Emma felt her heart stop as she saw Alexander Hartwell, step up to the microphone. He looked completely different than he had in the closet, commanding and confident, every inch the successful CEO. His hair was perfectly in place, his suit immaculate. There was no trace of the vulnerable man who'd kissed her in the darkness. "Thank you all for coming tonight." Alex's voice rang out over the crowd, amplified and authoritative. Emma felt Casey's hand tighten on her arm. "This is Alexander Hartwell," her friend hissed. "The CEO. The actual CEO is about to give a speech, and you're going to miss it while looking for exits." Emma couldn't respond. She was frozen, watching Alex's face as he thanked various people, acknowledged the hard work of his team, talked about the future of Hartwell Industries. He was every bit the powerful businessman she'd imagined he'd be, the kind of man who belonged in rooms like this, who shaped economies and built empires, and she'd kissed him in a closet. "But tonight isn't just about business," Alex was saying, his eyes scanning the crowd. Emma ducked slightly behind a taller guest, irrationally afraid he might spot her. "Tonight is also a reminder that sometimes the most important moments happen when you least expect them. When you step away from the noise and the expectations and just let yourself be present for what life brings you." Was he talking about the closet? About her? Emma's heart was hammering so hard she was sure everyone around her could hear it. "So, I want to thank everyone here for celebrating with me. But I also want to encourage all of you to find those unexpected moments in your own lives. The ones that remind you why we do all of this in the first place." Alex paused, and Emma could swear he was looking in her direction, though surely that was impossible in a crowd this large. Sometimes the best things happen when we stop trying to control every outcome and just let ourselves be surprised. The applause was thunderous. Emma watched as Alex was immediately swarmed by people congratulating him, networking, doing exactly what he'd been hiding from earlier. He disappeared into the crowd, and Emma felt a strange sense of loss, like she'd watched something precious slip away. "Emma Carter, is that really you?" The voice was sickeningly familiar. Emma turned slowly to find Ryan standing beside her, Melissa tucked under his arm like an expensive accessory. He looked exactly as she remembered, handsome in that generic way that had once made her heart race. Now she just felt tired looking at him. "Ryan," she said, keeping her voice neutral. "Hello. I heard you were here. Can't say I expected to see you at an event like this." His tone was condescending, that particular flavor of dismissive he'd perfected toward the end of their relationship. "Melissa, this is Emma, the girl I told you about." The girl I told you about. Not my ex-girlfriend, not someone important, just the girl. Emma felt Casey tense beside her, ready to defend, but Emma put a hand on her friend's arm. She didn't need defending, not anymore. "It's nice to meet you," Melissa said, and to her credit, she seemed genuinely friendly rather than smug. "Ryan's mentioned you." "I'm sure he has," Emma replied evenly. She looked at Ryan, really looked at him, and was surprised to find she felt almost nothing. No anger, no hurt, just a mild curiosity about what she'd ever seen in him. "How have you been?" Ryan looked taken aback by her calm demeanor. He'd probably expected tears or bitterness. "Good. Great, actually. Melissa and I just got engaged last week. We're planning a summer wedding." "Congratulations," Emma said, and meant it. Because standing here, looking at the man who'd made her feel like she wasn't enough, she realized he'd done her a favor. If he hadn't left, she'd never have been hiding in that closet tonight. Would never have met Alex. Never have had those 30 perfect minutes where she'd felt more alive than she had in years. "You look surprised," Ryan said, misreading her expression. "Didn't think I'd move on so fast?" "Actually, I was just thinking that I'm grateful to you," Emma replied honestly, "for ending things when you did. I think we both deserved better than what we had. And it seems like you found it. So good for you." For once, Ryan was speechless. Melissa smiled, a genuine smile that suggested she might actually be a decent person, despite her family's money. "That's very mature of you," she said. Ryan said you were kind. They chatted for a few more minutes, superficial party talk about work and plans. Emma found herself relaxing, even laughing at one of Melissa's stories about a disastrous charity gala. When they finally excused themselves, Casey turned to Emma with wide eyes. "Who are you, and what have you done with my best friend? You were amazing just now. Cool, collected, completely over him. What happened when you disappeared?" Emma smiled, thinking about the closet, about Alex's kiss, about the way he'd made her feel seen. "I had a moment," she said. "An unexpected moment." The rest of the evening passed in a strange blur. Emma found herself actually enjoying the party, or at least not dreading every moment of it. She networked a bit, exchanging business cards with a few people Casey introduced her to. She even accepted a second glass of champagne and let herself sway slightly to the music. But through it all, she found herself scanning the crowd for Alex, catching occasional glimpses of him surrounded by people, always professional, always perfectly composed. Never alone. Their eyes met once, across the ballroom. Emma was standing by one of the tall windows overlooking the city, when she felt that particular prickle of being watched. She turned, and there he was, maybe 30 feet away, in the middle of what looked like an intense conversation with several men in suits. But he was looking at her, not them, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. It was longing, mixed with frustration, mixed with something else she couldn't quite identify. She smiled, small and sad, a smile that said, "I understand." This was always going to end this way. He nodded almost imperceptibly, then turned his attention back to his conversation. Emma forced herself to look away, to rejoin Casey and the small group of marketing professionals her friend was charming. By 11 o'clock, Emma's feet were aching in her heels, and she'd had enough champagne to feel pleasantly fuzzy around the edges. Casey was deep in conversation with some executive from a rival firm, laughing at his jokes with the ease of someone who belonged in places like this. Emma touched her friend's arm. "I'm going to head out," she said quietly. "You stay. Network. I'll catch an Uber." Casey hesitated, clearly torn between friendship and opportunity. "Are you sure? I can come with you." "I'm sure. This is your thing. Do your thing." Emma squeezed her hand. "Text me when you get home." The cool night air felt like a blessing after the stuffy warmth of the ballroom. Emma walked down the hotel's grand front steps, her coat wrapped tight against the November chill. The valet area was busy with people leaving, calling for their expensive cars, but Emma bypassed it, heading for the sidewalk, where she could wait for her rideshare in relative quiet. She was scrolling through the Uber app, watching the little cars move around her on the map, when she heard footsteps behind her. Fast footsteps, like someone was running. "Emma, wait!" She spun around, and there was Alex, slightly out of breath, his bow tie loosened, and his hair no longer quite so perfect. He looked like he'd literally run after her, which was impossible because he was the CEO, and he had a party full of important people waiting for him inside. "What are you doing?" Emma asked, her heart suddenly racing again. "You can't just leave your own party." "I did, though." He stopped a few feet from her, and even in the streetlight, she could see the intensity in his eyes. "I watched you leave, and I realized I was making the biggest mistake of my life, letting you walk away." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes, unexpected and overwhelming. "Alex, we talked about this. We're from different worlds. This thing, whatever it was in the closet, it was perfect because it wasn't real. It was just a moment outside of reality. What if I don't want a moment?" Alex took a step closer. "What if I want more than that? You don't even know me. Not really." "We spent 30 minutes in a closet. That's not enough to base anything on." "Isn't it?" He was close enough now that she could smell his cologne again, that subtle, expensive scent that she'd already memorized. "Emma, I've been on dozens of dates with women who looked perfect on paper. We had everything in common, shared the same social circles, wanted the same things, and every single one of those dates felt empty. But 30 minutes with you felt more real than anything I've experienced in years. That's the fantasy talking, the closet, the darkness, the absurdity of the situation. But out here, in the real world is where I want to get to know you," Alex interrupted. "I want to take you to dinner, a real dinner where we sit across from each other, and I get to see your face while we talk. I want to know what you're working on, what makes you laugh, what your favorite movies are. I want to meet your friends and hear your stories and learn all the things about you that aren't going to fit into 30 minutes. Emma was shaking, from cold or emotion or both. "And what happens when you realize I'm not who you thought I was in that closet? When the reality doesn't match the fantasy? What if it's better?" Alex's hand came up to cup her face, gentle and warm. "Emma, I know this is fast. I know it's crazy. But I also know that I've spent the last hour and a half thinking about you instead of celebrating the biggest deal of my career. I know that when I saw you across the ballroom earlier, all I wanted to do was push through that crowd and find you. And I know that if I let you get in that Uber and drive away without at least trying to see if this could be something, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life." Emma felt a tear slip down her cheek, and Alex wiped it away with his thumb. "I saw my ex tonight," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ryan, the one I was hiding from. And you know what I realized when I was talking to him? That I'd been so focused on not being enough for him that I forgot to ask if he was enough for me. He wasn't. But being in that closet with you, feeling like someone actually saw me, actually listened to me, actually wanted to know what I thought about things, that felt like enough. That felt like more than enough." "Then let it be more than a moment," Alex said. "Let's see where this goes. No pressure, no expectations. Just you and me, figuring it out." Emma's phone buzzed with an Uber notification. Her driver was 2 minutes away. She looked at the phone, then back at Alex, then at the phone again. This was the reasonable choice, the safe choice. Go home, chalk this night up to a strange adventure, protect her heart from potential devastation. But when had the safe choice ever made her feel alive? "Okay," she said, canceling the Uber with a swipe of her finger. "But I have conditions." Alex's face broke into a smile so genuine, so relieved, that Emma felt her remaining resistance crumble. "Name them." 1. You don't try to fix my life or give me money or do any of that billionaire rescuing the poor girl nonsense. I'm not a charity case, and I don't need saving. 2. We take this slow. Real dates, real conversations, real getting to know each other. No rushing into anything just because we had one intense moment. And 3. If this doesn't work out, if we realize we're too different, or the fantasy doesn't translate to reality, we're honest about it. No ghosting, no making excuses. We're adults about it. "Deal," Alex said immediately, though I want to add a condition of my own. "What's that?" "You give me a real chance, not just going through the motions waiting for it to fail, but actually trying to see if this could work. Because I'm going to try, Emma. I'm going to try really hard." Emma felt her resistance finally, completely crumble. "I can do that," she said. This kiss was different from the one in the closet. It was softer, sweeter, full of promise instead of desperation. Emma let herself sink into it, let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this crazy thing could actually work. When they finally pulled apart, Alex rested his forehead against hers. "I should probably go back inside," he said reluctantly. "There are about 50 people who are going to want to know where I disappeared to. What are you going to tell them? The truth, that I met someone worth leaving my own party for." He pulled back to look at her, his eyes serious. "Give me your number. I'm going to call you tomorrow, and we're going to plan a proper date. Somewhere quiet where we can talk without hiding in closets." Emma laughed and programmed her number into his phone. As she handed it back, she felt a flutter of nervousness. This was really happening. She was really doing this. "Don't make me regret this," she said, trying for lightness. "I won't," Alex promised. He kissed her once more, quick and sweet, then started backing toward the hotel entrance. "Tomorrow, Emma. I promise." She watched him jog back up the steps and disappear into the hotel, back to his party, and his important guests, and his CEO life. Then she ordered another Uber and waited, her lips still tingling, her heart still racing. Emma didn't hear from Alex the next day, or the day after that. By the third day, she'd convinced herself the whole thing had been a fantasy after all, a momentary lapse in judgment on his part, that he'd sobered up from once he got back to his real life. She threw herself into work, accepting a rush job redesigning a website for a local bakery, anything to keep her mind occupied. Casey called on day 4, concerned. "You've been weird since that party. What happened? You never really told me." Emma considered lying. But what was the point? "I met someone. I thought he was interested. He wasn't. End of story." "Who? Tell me his name and I'll destroy him on social media." That made Emma smile despite herself. It doesn't matter. It was just a moment, not a relationship. But on day 5, a Friday afternoon, Emma's doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone and almost didn't answer, still in her pajama pants and an old college sweatshirt, her hair in a messy bun. But the doorbell rang again, insistent, and with a sigh, she trudged to the door. There was a delivery person holding the most enormous bouquet of flowers Emma had ever seen. Roses, lilies, peonies, orchids, a riot of color and fragrance that nearly overwhelmed her tiny apartment entryway. "Emma Carter?" the delivery person asked. "That's me," Emma said, dazed. The flowers came with a note on thick, expensive cardstock. Emma's hands shook as she opened it. "Emma, I'm sorry for the delay. The last 5 days have been insane. Back-to-back meetings for the deal, contract negotiations, legal issues that required my constant attention. I wanted to call you 100 times, but I didn't want our first real conversation to be me, distracted and exhausted, giving you half my attention when you deserve all of it. If you're free tonight, I'd like to take you to dinner. Somewhere quiet, no crowds, just us. I promise I'll explain everything. If you're not interested anymore, I understand. But I really hope you'll give me a chance to prove I meant everything I said. Alex." There was a phone number at the bottom. Emma stared at it for a long moment, her mind racing. 5 days was a long time. Long enough to doubt everything, to convince herself she'd imagined the connection. But there was something about the note, about the acknowledgement that he'd wanted to call, but waited so he could give her his full attention, that felt genuine. She called the number before she could overthink it. Alex answered on the first ring. "Emma." Just hearing his voice made her heart skip. "I got your flowers. They're beautiful. Excessive, but beautiful." "Too much?" He sounded worried. "I wasn't sure. I asked the florist for romantic but not creepy, and I think maybe we landed on overwhelming instead." Emma laughed, some of the tension in her chest easing. "They're perfect. And yes, I'm free tonight. Thank God." She heard his relieved exhale. "I'll pick you up at 7. And Emma, I really am sorry for the wait. I wanted to do this right." They hung up, and Emma looked down at herself, at her pajama pants and ratty sweatshirt. She had 4 hours to transform into someone who could date a CEO. But as she headed to her closet, she realized she didn't want to transform into someone else. She wanted to be Emma, the girl from the closet, the one Alex had kissed in the darkness. That Emma was enough. She chose a dress she'd made herself. This one, a deep emerald green that brought out the warm tones in her skin. She styled her hair in loose waves and kept her makeup natural. When Alex knocked on her door at exactly 7, she opened it feeling confident for the first time since the party. Alex looked different in the hallway light of her modest apartment building. He was wearing jeans, actual jeans, and a dark sweater that made his eyes look impossibly blue. His hair was slightly messy, like he'd been running his hands through it, and he held a single red rose. "Hi," he said, and he looked almost nervous. "Hi yourself." Emma took the rose, added it to the massive bouquet. "You know you already sent me about 100 flowers, right?" That was the apology. This is the first date flower. Completely different. He stepped back as she grabbed her coat. "You look incredible." "So do you. I wasn't sure CEOs owned jeans. We're full of surprises. Alex led her down the stairs to the street, where Emma expected to see some ridiculous luxury car. Instead, there was a normal sedan, possibly even an Uber. I thought about bringing my car, Alex explained, but it felt like showing off. Plus, I wanted to be able to focus on you, not driving. They went to a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood Emma loved, but could rarely afford to eat in. It was cozy and intimate, with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. Alex had clearly called ahead because they were led to a corner table that felt private, away from other diners. "Tell me everything," Emma said once they'd ordered. "The last 5 days? What you've been doing? Why you didn't call?" Alex leaned forward, his expression earnest. "The truth is, closing this deal was just the beginning. There have been about 1,000 details to finalize, legal documents to review, press to manage. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. I had meetings until midnight every night, and then I was back in the office by 6 a.m. He paused. "But that's not the whole truth." "What's the whole truth?" "I was terrified," Alex admitted. "Terrified that if I called you while I was distracted and exhausted, I'd screw it up, that you'd think you were just another item on my to-do list. And I was terrified that what I felt in that closet was just the moment, the fantasy like you said, and that in the real world, we wouldn't have anything to say to each other." Emma reached across the table, took his hand. "And now? Now, I'm sitting across from you, and all I can think about is how much I want to know everything about you." Alex squeezed her hand. "So tell me, Emma Carter. Tell me about growing up, about how you got into graphic design, about your family and your dreams and everything that makes you who you are." So she did. Over plates of pasta and glasses of wine, Emma told him about growing up with a single mom who worked 2 jobs, about discovering design in a high school art class, about putting herself through community college and then a state university while working full-time. She told him about her complicated relationship with her mother, who loved her but didn't understand her choices, who wanted security and stability in the form of a traditional career and traditional marriage. "She was so disappointed when Ryan left me," Emma said, twirling her fork in her linguine. "Not because she liked him, but because she thought it meant I'd failed at the one traditional thing I'd attempted. Like my whole life is just a series of rejections of what she wanted for me." "What do you want for you?" Alex asked. Emma thought about it. "I want to build something that matters. I want to design things that make people feel something, that solve problems or bring beauty into the world. I want to stop living paycheck to paycheck and wondering if I can afford both groceries and rent. But more than that, I want to feel like I'm enough, exactly as I am, without having to change or compromise or be someone different." "You are enough," Alex said quietly. "You're more than enough." Then it was Alex's turn. He told Emma about growing up with parents who had impossibly high expectations, about being groomed from childhood to take over the family business. "Except when I was 23, I realized I didn't want their business. I wanted to build my own." He smiled ruefully. "They didn't take it well. My father basically disowned me, told me I was throwing away my legacy for some pipe dream." We didn't speak for 5 years. "Do you speak now?" Emma asked gently. "We do. They came around eventually, especially after Hartwell Industries started succeeding. But there's still this distance between us. Like they love the CEO version of me but don't really know the person underneath." He looked at Emma. "That's what was so incredible about the closet. You met me, not my title or my money or my accomplishments. Just me, having a weird moment at a party." "To be fair, I was also having a weird moment," Emma pointed out. "So we met each other at our most human." They talked through dinner, through dessert, through 2 cups of coffee each. The restaurant staff started cleaning up around them, and the owner, an elderly Italian woman, finally came over with a kind smile. I hate to interrupt such a beautiful conversation, but we close soon. Alex looked shocked at his watch. It's almost midnight. I'm so sorry. We completely lost track of time. That's amore, the owner said with a wink. But yes, you should go now. Outside, the November night had turned colder. Emma shivered despite her coat, and Alex immediately shrugged off his jacket to drape it around her shoulders. I should get you home, he said, even though I don't want this night to end. Me neither, Emma admitted. They started walking, neither of them mentioning calling a car. The streets were quiet, just the two of them and the occasional passing car. Can I ask you something? Anything. What do you really want, Alex? Not the CEO you, but the you underneath all that. What do you want your life to look like? Alex was quiet for a moment, and Emma worried she'd pushed too far. But then he spoke, his voice thoughtful. I want balance. I want to keep building and creating. But I don't want my company to be the only thing that defines me. I want relationships that matter, friends who know me, maybe someday a family. I want to wake up and feel excited about the day instead of just going through the motions of success. He stopped walking, turned to face her. And right now, in this moment, I want more nights like this. With you. Emma's breath caught. They were standing under a streetlight, the city quiet around them, and the way Alex was looking at her made her feel like she was the only person in the world. I want that too, she said softly. Even though I'm a CEO who hides in closets? His tone was light, teasing, but Emma heard the real question underneath. Especially because you're a CEO who hides in closets, she replied. Because it means you're human, not just a title. Because it means you understand what it's like to feel overwhelmed and need a moment. Because it means we're not as different as we thought. Alex kissed her then, right there on the sidewalk under the streetlight, and Emma felt something shift inside her. This wasn't fantasy anymore. This was real, solid, possible, terrifying and exciting, and more than she'd dared to hope for. When they finally made it back to Emma's apartment building, Alex walked her to her door, like it was the most natural thing in the world. When can I see you again? He asked. How about tomorrow? Emma suggested. It's Saturday. We could do something normal, not fancy. Maybe just walk around, get coffee, see where the day takes us. Perfect. Alex kissed her again, quick and sweet. Text me when you wake up. I'll come get you, and we'll figure it out as we go. Emma watched him leave, then floated into her apartment on a cloud of happiness. The massive bouquet was still filling her tiny living room with fragrance. She picked up her phone to text Casey an update, and saw she had a message from an unknown number. This is Ryan. Melissa and I saw you leave the party with Alexander Hartwell. I just wanted to say I'm happy for you. You deserve someone who sees how incredible you are. Take care, Emma. Emma stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back a simple response. Thank you. I hope you're happy too. Then she deleted his number and fell asleep with a smile on her face. The next 3 months felt like a dream, except they were too real, too solid to be anything but life actually working out for once. Emma and Alex fell into a rhythm that surprised both of them with how natural it felt. They had breakfast dates before Alex went to work, where Emma would meet him at a diner halfway between their apartments, and they'd share pancakes and coffee and talk about their plans for the day. They had proper dinner dates at restaurants ranging from hole-in-the-wall ethnic places Emma loved to the occasional fancy spot where Alex was recognized, and they had to deal with the reality of his public persona. They had quiet nights at Emma's apartment watching movies, Alex in jeans and a t-shirt, sharing takeout and arguing good-naturedly about plot holes. Emma met his friends, successful people who initially seemed intimidating, but turned out to be surprisingly down-to-earth. Alex met Casey, who grilled him mercilessly for the first hour before declaring him acceptable and becoming his staunch supporter. They navigated the challenges of their different worlds, the times when Alex had to cancel plans because of work emergencies, the times when Emma felt overwhelmed by the wealth and privilege that surrounded him. But they also found their balance. Alex insisted on keeping their relationship as normal as possible, splitting checks when they went out, even though Emma knew he could buy the entire restaurant without blinking. Emma pushed herself to be comfortable in his world while maintaining her own identity, her own career, her own life that didn't revolve around being the CEO's girlfriend. "How's it going with Alexander?" Emma's mother asked during one of their weekly phone calls. "Casey mentioned you were seeing someone successful." Emma smiled. "It's good, Mom, really good. He's kind and smart, and he actually listens when I talk about my work." "Just don't lose yourself," her mother warned, and Emma heard the love underneath the worry. "Don't give up your dreams for his." "I won't," Emma promised. "He doesn't want me to. That's one of the things I love about him." Love. The word had slipped out without her meaning it to, but as soon as she said it, Emma realized it was true. She loved Alex, loved his terrible jokes and his surprising vulnerability. Loved how he'd order from the kids' menu at diners because he actually preferred chicken tenders to fancy food. Loved how he supported her work, asking intelligent questions about her designs and bragging about her to anyone who would listen. Loved how he never made her feel less than, even when they were at events where she was clearly out of her depth. And one night, lying in his arms in his apartment after a lazy Sunday of doing nothing but being together, she told him. "I love you," Emma said, her heart pounding. They'd only been dating 3 months. Maybe it was too soon. Maybe she was making a mistake being this vulnerable. Alex's arms tightened around her. "Thank God," he breathed. "I've been terrified to say it first because I didn't want to scare you off. Emma, I've loved you since that closet. I think I fell in love with you the moment you said you were glad you hid in my closet." They made love that night, slow and sweet and perfect, and Emma felt like all the pieces of her life were finally falling into place. But of course it couldn't be that simple. Nothing ever was. The trouble started with an article in a business magazine, a profile of Alex and Hartwell Industries that included a photograph of them at a charity gala. Emma was in the picture, standing beside Alex in a dress he'd helped her pick out, smiling up at him. The caption read, "Alexander Hartwell with companion Emma Carter." Companion. Such a small word, but it carried implications. Not girlfriend, not partner, just companion. As if she were an accessory he'd brought along to look good in photos. Emma tried not to let it bother her, but it did. And then came the comments on social media when someone shared the article. Questions about who she was. Speculation about whether she was using Alex for his money. Comments about how she wasn't pretty enough, or thin enough, or sophisticated enough to be with someone like him. Most people were kind or neutral, but the cruel comments stuck, burrowing into the insecurities Emma thought she'd overcome. "Don't read that garbage," Casey advised, when Emma confessed what was bothering her. "Those people don't know you. They don't know what you and Alex have." But the damage was done. Emma started second-guessing herself, wondering if people were right. She was still struggling financially, still taking freelance jobs to make ends meet, while Alex lived in a world where money was meaningless. She was still the girl from the closet, hiding from her ex, while Alex was the CEO everyone wanted a piece of. It came to a head at a business dinner Alex had asked her to attend. It was important, he'd said. Potential investors he needed to impress. Emma had worn her best dress, the emerald one from their first date. but she still felt underdressed compared to the other women there, dripping in diamonds and designer labels. The dinner was excruciating. The conversation was all business, mergers and acquisitions and market shares, topics Emma understood in theory, but had no practical experience with. She smiled and nodded, tried to contribute when she could, but mostly felt invisible, the companion who was there to look pretty and not say anything stupid. And then one of the investors, a silver-haired man named Robert, turned to her. "So, Emma, what do you do? Besides keeping our friend Alex here entertained." The phrasing was probably meant to be playful, but it landed wrong. Emma felt her cheeks burn. "I'm a graphic designer. I run my own freelance business." "How quaint," Robert's wife chimed in. "Like logos and things." "And websites and brand identities and marketing materials," Emma replied, keeping her voice even. "I work with small businesses mostly, helping them establish their visual presence." "But nothing corporate," Robert said, as if that settled something. "Nothing like what Alex does." "No," Emma agreed. "Nothing like what Alex does. Different scale, same principle. We're both building things, just in different ways." Alex reached under the table, squeezed her hand. "Emma's incredibly talented. She built her business from nothing, which is more than I can say. I had seed money from my first company. Emma had determination and skill." The conversation moved on, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she'd been judged and found lacking. When they finally left the restaurant, she was quiet, and Alex noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked in the car. "You've been off since dinner." "I don't fit in your world," Emma said bluntly. Tonight made that really clear. "That's not true." "Alex, they looked at me like I was some kind of curiosity, the poor girlfriend who does cute little design projects. I could feel them wondering what you're doing with me." "I don't care what they think," Alex said, his voice intense. "I care about you." "But I care what they think," Emma admitted, "because they're part of your life, and I'm never going to be comfortable in that world. I'm always going to be the outsider, the one who doesn't have the right pedigree or the right connections." They argued, really argued, for the first time. Alex insisted that none of it mattered, that he loved her for who she was, not what she could do for his image. Emma tried to explain that it wasn't about his feelings. It was about the reality of their different worlds. They went in circles until they were both exhausted, and Emma asked him to take her home. "We'll talk about this tomorrow," Alex said as he walked her to her door, "when we're both calmer." But Emma lay awake that night, staring at her ceiling, wondering if love was enough when the worlds you came from were so different. She thought about her mother's warnings, about Casey's early skepticism, about all the rom-coms that made finding love look easy when the reality was so much more complicated. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Alex, I know you're probably still awake. I'm awake too. I hate that we fought. I hate even more that I made you feel like you don't belong in my life when you're the best part of it. Can we talk tomorrow? Really talk?" Emma typed back. "Yes. Tomorrow." They met at the park near Emma's apartment, neutral ground. It was a cold December morning, and Emma wore the coat Alex had given her, soft cashmere that was probably worth more than her entire wardrobe. They walked in silence for a while, both of them gathering their thoughts. "I'm scared," Emma said finally. "I'm scared that I'm always going to feel like I'm not enough in your world. That I'm going to spend the rest of my life being the companion in photos, the girlfriend people speculate about, the one who doesn't quite fit. And I'm scared that you're going to wake up one day and decide that being with me isn't worth the hassle," Alex replied. "That my world is going to crush what we have, that I'm going to lose you because I can't protect you from the reality of who I am and what my life entails." They stopped walking, turned to face each other. Emma saw her own fear reflected in Alex's eyes, and suddenly the fight from the night before seemed less important than what they were both really feeling. "What do we do?" Emma asked. "How do we make this work?" "I don't know," Alex admitted, "but I know I don't want to lose you. I know that every solution starts with us being honest about what we need and what we're afraid of." "I need to feel like I have my own identity," Emma said. "Not just as your girlfriend, but as Emma, who has her own career and her own goals and her own value. I need you to understand that I'm proud of what I do, even if it's not on the same scale as what you do." "I do understand that," Alex said, "and I'm sorry if I ever made you feel otherwise. But Emma, I need you to understand something too. That dinner last night, those people, most of them are boring as hell. I'd rather spend time with you than with any of them. You're not less than because you're different. You're more interesting, more real, more everything that matters." They stood there in the cold park, facing each other, and Emma felt something shift. "What if we stop trying to make me fit into your world?" she suggested. "What if instead we build our own world? One where we're just Emma and Alex, not the CEO and the struggling designer, not the millionaire and the girl from the wrong side of town, just us." Alex's face broke into a smile. "I love that. But how do we do that?" "We set boundaries," Emma said, the idea forming as she spoke. "We decide which events are really important and which ones you can skip. We have date nights that are just us. No work talk, no business contacts. We protect our time together instead of letting your world swallow it up." "And you stop comparing yourself to people in my world," Alex added, "because they're not the standard. You're not less than because you didn't grow up with money. You built yourself, Emma. That's worth more than any trust fund." They talked for hours, sitting on a park bench despite the cold, hashing out what their relationship needed to look like to work. Emma needed to maintain her independence, her own career, her own identity. Alex needed Emma to trust that he loved her for who she was, not what she could become or what she could do for his image. They both needed to stop being scared that the other person was going to wake up and realize this was all a mistake. "I love you," Alex said as they finally stood to leave, his hands cupping Emma's cold face. "I love you exactly as you are, and I'm going to keep telling you that until you believe it." "I'm getting there," Emma replied, and she meant it. "But Alex, you need to listen to me too. When I tell you I'm uncomfortable in a situation, or when I say I can't make an event, I need you to trust that I know my own limits. Deal?" Alex kissed her, and Emma felt the fear from the night before dissolve. They weren't perfect. Their worlds were still different. But maybe that was okay. Maybe love wasn't about being perfect or fitting into each other's lives seamlessly. Maybe it was about choosing each other again and again, even when it was hard. The holidays came, and Emma met Alex's parents for the first time at their massive estate in Connecticut. His mother was gracious, but clearly skeptical, the kind of woman who smiled while conducting a thorough interrogation disguised as polite conversation. His father was more direct, asking Emma about her business plan, her long-term goals, whether she intended to continue working once she and Alex were more serious. "Dad," Alex said, his voice carrying a warning. But Emma answered anyway. "I intend to continue working for as long as I'm able," she said calmly. "My business is important to me, and I don't see why being in a relationship would change that." "Even if you had children?" Alex's mother asked delicately. "Even then," Emma replied, "though that's a conversation for Alex and me to have privately, not at Christmas dinner." There was a moment of tense silence, and then Alex's father laughed. "She's got spine," he said to Alex. "I like that." Your mother and I thought you'd bring home another socialite who'd agree with everything we said." The rest of the visit was easier after that. Emma learned that Alex's parents weren't monsters, just people who had certain expectations for their son and were learning to adjust. And by the time they left, Alex's mother had asked Emma for her business card, mentioning a friend who needed a logo designed. "That went better than I expected," Alex said on the drive home. "You were amazing with them." "I was terrified," Emma admitted, "but I figured if we're going to make this work, I need to be myself, even with your parents, especially with your parents." "That's why I love you," Alex said, reaching over to take her hand. "You don't pretend to be someone you're not, even when it would be easier." Emma brought Alex home to meet her mother in January, and that was its own kind of challenge. Her mother's apartment was tiny compared to what Alex was used to, filled with second-hand furniture and the smell of her mother's cooking. But Alex charmed her within minutes, complimenting the food, asking about her work as a nurse, treating her with the same respect he'd treat anyone. "He's a good man," Emma's mother told her later, in the kitchen, while Alex chatted with Emma's neighbors who'd conveniently dropped by. "But Emma, are you sure about this? His world is so different from ours." "I'm sure, Mom," Emma said. "It's not always easy, but it's worth it. He's worth it." "Then I'm happy for you," her mother said, pulling Emma into a hug. "Just promise me you won't lose yourself in his world." "I won't," Emma promised. "He doesn't want me to. That's why it works." February came, 6 months after the closet, and Alex planned a surprise for Valentine's Day. Emma had told him she didn't need anything fancy, but when he picked her up that evening, he was clearly excited about something. "Where are we going?" Emma asked as they drove through the city. "You'll see," was all Alex would say. They ended up at a small art gallery in Emma's neighborhood, one she walked past all the time but had never been inside. The gallery was closed to the public, but Alex had arranged a private viewing. Inside, Emma stopped short, her breath catching. The walls were covered in her designs, every freelance project she'd worked on in the last year, every logo and brand identity and website mock-up, professionally printed and mounted like real art. In the center of the gallery was a single piece, a framed certificate declaring the establishment of Carter Design Studio, a full-fledged design agency, with Alex listed as a silent partner providing seed funding. "What is this?" Emma asked, tears streaming down her face. "This is me investing in you," Alex said, coming to stand beside her. "Not trying to rescue you or fix your life, but investing in your talent, because I believe in what you can build. The gallery showing is just for tonight, just for you to see your work the way I see it. But the studio, that's real, if you want it." Emma turned to him, overwhelmed. "Alex, this is too much." "It's not charity," Alex said quickly. "It's a business investment. I've seen your work, your talent, your drive. You deserve the chance to build something bigger than freelance projects, and I want to help you do that. But only if you want it. If you'd rather keep building on your own, I'll support that too." Emma looked around the gallery at 6 months of her work displayed like it mattered, like it was worth something. She thought about all the times she'd felt inadequate in Alex's world, all the times she'd wondered if she was enough. And then she looked at Alex, who saw her not as a project to fix, but as someone worth investing in. "I want it," she said. "I want to build something real, with you as my partner." "Silent partner," Alex corrected. "This is your company, your vision. I'm just providing the resources to help you get there faster." They celebrated that night, just the two of them in the empty gallery, surrounded by Emma's work. And Emma realized that this was what love looked like in reality. Not the fantasy of the closet, but the real, messy, complicated truth of two people building a life together. It looked like someone believing in you enough to invest in your dreams. It looked like fighting and making up and figuring out how to merge two different worlds into something new. It looked like choosing each other over and over, even when it was hard. 6 months later, Carter Design Studio had 3 employees and a client list that was growing steadily. Emma was working harder than ever, but she loved every minute of it. She and Alex had found their rhythm, balancing their careers and their relationship, protecting their time together while supporting each other's individual goals. And one night, 1 year after the closet, Alex took Emma back to the Riverside Hotel. They walked through the same ballroom where it had all started, now empty and quiet. No party in progress. Alex led her down the familiar hallway to that same utility closet. "Are you serious?" Emma laughed, but she was crying too, overwhelmed by the significance of the moment. "I'm very serious," Alex said, opening the door. Inside, the closet had been transformed. Fairy lights lined the walls, and in the center of the floor was a blanket, a bottle of champagne, and a small velvet box. Emma's hand went to her mouth. "Alex, a year ago I was hiding in here from my own party," Alex said, pulling her inside and closing the door behind them. "I was successful and accomplished and completely alone. And then you burst in, running from your ex, and everything changed. You changed everything, Emma." He got down on one knee, opened the box, to reveal a ring that was beautiful, but not ostentatious, perfect for Emma's taste. "I love you. I love your talent and your strength and your refusal to be anything other than exactly who you are. I love how you challenge me and support me and make me want to be better. And I want to spend the rest of my life building our world together, the one where we're just Emma and Alex, to choosing each other every single day." "Yes," Emma said, not even letting him finish the question. "Yes, yes, yes." Alex slipped the ring on her finger, pulled her down onto the blanket, and kissed her in the same closet where they'd first met. And Emma thought about how a year ago she'd been running from her ex, feeling inadequate and lost, how she'd hidden in a closet and found something she didn't even know she was looking for. Sometimes the best things in life happened when you stopped trying to control everything and just let yourself be surprised. Sometimes hiding in a closet with a stranger turned out to be the bravest thing you could do. And sometimes love meant building something new together, piece by piece, mistake by mistake, choice by choice, until you looked around and realized you'd created exactly the life you needed. Emma Carter had found that life, and it had started in the most unlikely place, with the most unlikely person, in the most unlikely way. But then again, the best stories always did. What did you think of their story? Share your thoughts in the comments on a scale from 0 to 10. What's your rating? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories, and check out more emotional stories by clicking on the end screen.